There have been 3 live-action Spider-Men in the modern era, unless you include Nick Cage, who doesn't play Peter Parker. So 3 Peter Parkers in live action. And somehow we got ridiculously lucky with all 3. Tobey Maguire gave us arguably the purest version of Spider-Man's morality. Andrew Garfield might be the most charismatic person to ever put on the mask. But I think Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man overall. And after Brand New Day, the argument is almost undeniable. Because for years, there was an asterisk next to Tom's performance as Spider-Man. He had Tony Stark, he had the Avengers, he had billion-dollar technology, he had Happy Hogan, Nick Fury, Doctor Strange, and basically the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe working and getting behind him. And more importantly, providing a safety blanket for him when things got too big. And thus, people called him Iron Man Jr. And while I didn't agree with the criticism, I understood it. But Brand New Day allowed us to see the answer to the question, what would happen to Tom's Spider-Man if there was nobody left to catch him? And the answer is exactly who Spider-Man is supposed to be. Before we get into Tom, I want to make something very clear. Saying that Tom Holland was the best Spider-Man does not require pretending that the other 2 weren't also fantastic. In fact, I think all 3 of the actors capture something very specific about Spider-Man better than the other 2 do. Tobey captures the weight. He always feels like he has the weight of the entire world sitting on his shoulders. I mean, watch Spider-Man 2. He's broken, he's exhausted, his relationships are falling apart. Being Spider-Man is actively destroying his life. And yet, when people need him, Spider-Man stands back up. It works really well with Tobey because he has a wonderfully sincere quality as an actor in general. He doesn't seem embarrassed by Peter's goodness. He just genuinely seems like a good person. There's no distance between him and the morality of the character. When Peter tells Aunt May how much Uncle Ben meant to him, Tobey fully commits to that. When he forgives Sandman, he fully commits to that. And therefore, Tobey's Spider-Man almost feels mythological due to the heightened sense of sincerity that you get from Tobey as an actor. And then Andrew Garfield brings something completely different. It's actually one of the reasons why many people say to this day that Andrew is actually their favorite Spider-Man while he's wearing the mask. He's loose, he's expressive, he's constantly moving. Not only is Andrew Garfield a fantastic actor in general, he is an exceptional body actor. He feels like somebody who suddenly discovered that covering his face allows him to embody everything that Peter Parker can't be. The things he normally suppresses. I mean, his Spider-Man is cocky, he's funny, he's annoying, he plays with criminals. And Andrew deeply understands something psychologically important about Spider-Man's humor. He's not joking because he's relaxed. He's joking because he's terrified. Then you have Gwen. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone created some of the best chemistry that I've ever seen on screen, and what that does is whenever she dies, it gives him a ton of deep material to work with to explore a range of emotions, which is actually why his save of MJ in No Way Home really impacts us. He catches her, he saves her, looks at her, and for a moment, you can feel 2 moments happening simultaneously. He saved MJ, he couldn't save Gwen. Andrew Garfield needs basically no dialogue there. The face says everything, and that is incredible acting. But Tom has something that neither of them had to the same extent: time. Not only is Tom undeniably an incredible actor, and not only is he fantastic in and out of the suit, he has something that neither of the others really got a chance to explore. We got to see his Peter Parker grow up. Let's go back to Civil War. Tom Holland doesn't play Peter Parker as a standard movie teenager. He plays him like a kid who randomly found Robert Downey Jr. sitting on his couch. His speech accelerates, his posture changes, he can't stop talking, he's very clearly nervous, as a teenager would do in that scenario. I mean, he's desperately trying to come across as more mature than he is, while every behavioral choice betrays him in that regard and reveals just how young he actually is. That's a surprisingly difficult and underrated thing for an actor to do. Peter Parker is a genius, and he knows that, but intelligence isn't maturity. Tom does a beautiful thing where he allows you to believe that he can create all of these wonderful gadgets. He's a scientific genius, but he's also not somebody that you should trust to make his own doctor appointments. You get what I'm saying? And then he puts the mask on. So suddenly his shoulders open up, he moves differently, he talks more. The anxiety doesn't disappear, it's just redirected. And that's where Tom Holland's physical background becomes incredibly useful. Tom was a dancer and a gymnast prior to ever taking on the role of Spider-Man, and you can see that in his performance. But being athletic isn't the thing that makes the performance special. It's that his body language and behavior changes when he goes from Spider-Man to Peter. His physicality is totally different because it's allowed to be, and it necessarily is. And even this evolves. I mean, the Spider-Man in Homecoming is talented but chaotic. He crashes into things, he misjudges distance, he gets himself caught, he gets himself trapped. He occasionally looks like a teenager who received powers 15 minutes ago, because he basically did. But here's where it gets special. Compare that to his Spider-Man years later. He's calmer, he's more deliberate, he's more efficient and experienced, and you can feel that in the body language. The character hasn't simply gotten stronger. His body has gotten used to being Spider-Man. And even in Homecoming, his acting chops are on full display whenever we see something like the rubble scene. And Peter is trapped under a building, under all of this rubble, and he screams for help, like a child, not like a superhero. Tom lets Peter panic. He's not controlled, his voice cracks, he's weeping, he's terrified. And then, he sees his reflection. He is Peter Parker, but he's also Spider-Man, and slowly, he gets himself under control. That's what makes this moment work. Peter doesn't suddenly stop being afraid. He acts while he's afraid. That's courage, which is Spider-Man. But that distinction is one of the things that enforces the entire character. Spider-Man isn't heroic because nothing scares him. He's heroic because everything scares him, and he still gets up and does the right thing. And Tom has essentially been playing escalated and evolved versions of that for 10 years now. As the maturity improves, as he gets more experienced and more under control, the obstacles grow alongside that, which gives Tom a wonderful opportunity to really show what he can do as an actor, both in the mask and outside of it. This brings us to the biggest criticism of Tom's Spider-Man: the Iron Man problem. I do understand why some fans disliked this relationship, even though I personally loved it. Peter Parker is traditionally the ultimate self-made hero. He makes the web shooters, he makes the suit, he figures things out on his own. But Tom's Peter Parker receives this highly advanced suit that Tony Stark built for him almost immediately. But I think that people often confuse his starting point with his character arc. The MCU Peter initially believes that being an Avenger gives him value. He thinks it makes him important. It makes him a hero. Tony gives him validation. The suit gives him validation. Being involved in these enormous battles gives him validation. But Homecoming takes that away. Peter goes after the Vulture anyway, and that's the point. You then fast forward to Endgame and Tony dies, and Peter keeps going. Then Mysterio manipulates him, partially because Peter wants another hero to look to, somebody to lean on, somebody to take the pressure off of his shoulders. But even after the manipulation and his name being revealed to the entire world, Peter survives that too. And then No Way Home takes that process to its logical extreme: the death of May Parker. And not only does May die, his only family that he has left, his identity then disappears. MJ forgets him. Ned forgets him. The Avengers aren't coming. Happy doesn't remember him. Peter Parker effectively ceases to exist. And what does he do? He makes another Spider-Man suit by himself. And then he jumps out of the window and resumes being a hero. Everything external is removed. All that's left is Peter Parker. And then Brand New Day happened. This is why Brand New Day is so important to Tom Holland's Peter Parker character arc, because the Peter we meet here isn't the same kid from Homecoming. He's living alone, he's fighting crime full time, he's working obsessively. He watches MJ and Ned live lives that no longer include him, and thus Tom Holland plays Peter Parker differently. There's still humor, there's still warmth, there's still that classic Tom Holland charm and energy, but it's buried beneath something much heavier. This version of Peter has learned to function without anybody. But one of the narrative points for this movie is that he confuses functioning with living. Spider-Man is essentially consuming Peter Parker, and I love that direction for this character, because Spider-Man characters are always built for balance. Peter needs Spider-Man, and Spider-Man needs Peter. Without the mask, Peter can feel powerless. But if Peter disappears into the mask, then that responsibility becomes obsession. And Brand New Day gives Tom Holland the opportunity to play that contradiction as a character. The movie explores this to its furthest extreme. Even his powers begin changing his psychological and physiological states. Peter is dealing with increasingly unstable biological factors, while his emotions and mental stability are also simultaneously becoming increasingly unstable. And Holland gets to play Spider-Man almost like an addiction. Saving people is unquestionably good, but Tom Holland's Peter Parker is treating Spider-Man like a way to escape from grieving. This is also why pairing him with the Punisher works so well. Frank Castle represents one possible endpoint for Peter's current trajectory. A man who lost everyone and everything he loves and therefore allowed his mission to consume his reality. Now obviously Peter isn't Frank, but that's why this pairing works so well. Frank sees this relentlessly talkative kid in spandex, and in that sees somebody who can't give up on people, somebody who endlessly sees the good in everyone, someone who's fully committed to the idea that everyone can be saved. Peter looks at Frank and sees what happens when pain becomes identity. And then Tom Holland's humor here becomes really important, because his Spider-Man can annoy Frank without Frank becoming a comedy character. Peter jokes, and Frank rarely tolerates it, like a big brother, little brother, uncle-nephew type relationship. But underneath the laughter and the comedy is a psychological difference. Frank eliminates threats. Peter saves people, even when those people don't necessarily deserve saving. And Brand New Day ultimately forces Peter to show that again. While he's doing this, his acting and his character arc actively allow for us to see Frank changing as well. We see the onion layers peeled back, and beneath this hardened exterior, Frank begins to believe in Peter's vision and who he is. And because of how Tom Holland has played Peter Parker, John Berthnall's wonderful performance hits even harder whenever Peter gets shot. You can see the impact that Tom Holland's Peter Parker has had on Frank Castle. It's a funny moment, but whenever he points out that Frank is crying, it's a moment for us as the fans to recognize, oh wow, there's something deeper beneath there that maybe we thought was there, but we weren't convinced. But Spider-Man draws that out, simply by being good. That's one of the many things that makes Tom Holland's performance in this movie so stellar, or dare I say, spectacular.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I think one of the more important changes in Brand New Day is actually the physiological mutation side of things. This biological storyline could have easily just been another random superhero power-up. Peter's abilities are changing, they're becoming harder to control. Bruce Banner confirms Peter's suspicions as to what's going on, and then Peter develops a way to suppress those changes. But the real struggle isn't whether or not Spider-Man becomes more powerful. It's who Peter allows himself to become, which becomes incredibly and increasingly important with the Jean Grey storyline. Peter initially sees just another dangerous superhuman being, a problem in bodily form. But eventually, he realizes that he's just looking at another damaged person. Somebody that almost perfectly mirrors what he went through in the previous film. May dies. He seeks vengeance. Luckily, he has guidance in Tobey's Peter Parker, who stops him from exacting that revenge. She loses her sister. She has no guidance. She's been bouncing around orphanage to orphanage, and thus has no guardrails in what she's doing to prevent her from unaliving people, from lashing out in rage and vengeance. But then when everything collapses, Peter Parker does the most unimaginable thing. He saves her, even when it nearly kills him. Peter gets shot protecting Jean Grey, the one who was causing a lot of problems throughout the film, but because that relationship exists, and being able to see this person who was broken for the same reason that he has compassion. That's Spider-Man. Think about where Tom Holland's Spider-Man began. This is a kid who desperately wanted Tony to tell him that he was worthy, that he was ready, that he was a superhero. Now there's no Tony, no shoulder tap initiation, no audience that Peter is trying to impress. But now, when he saves Jean, he makes this choice not because he's trying to impress someone. He makes the choice because it's the right one, because someone is going to die if he doesn't. Because like he expressed in Civil War, when bad things happen and you have the ability to stop them, and you don't, the bad things happening is your fault. Brand New Day shows the maturation of that character and principle in real time. This is ultimately why I give Tom the edge over Tobey and Andrew, although again, I love their performances. It's not because he beats Tobey at everything. He doesn't. It's not because he beats Andrew at everything. He doesn't. Tobey may still be the definitive Peter Parker when portraying the bearing of responsibility. Andrew still may be the most expressive and entertaining of the Spider-Men. But Tom has now gotten the chance to display the entire emotional developmental spectrum. We've seen Peter Parker at 15 just wanting to belong. We've seen him meet his heroes. We've seen him become an Avenger. We've seen him fall in love. We've seen him lose his mentors. We've seen him make catastrophic mistakes. We've seen him lose May, nearly murder the Goblin. We've seen him nearly voluntarily give up on his entire life. Now, we've seen what happens afterward. That's what Brand New Day adds. No Way Home gives Peter sacrifices. Brand New Day gives Peter consequences. And through all of this, now Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker finally understands that with great power comes great responsibility isn't just a slogan, it's a life sentence. But maybe all of this is why the Spider-Man debate is so difficult. Because a perfect live-action Spider-Man is difficult to instantiate into reality. Some people will want Tobey's sincerity. Some will say, give me Andrew's swagger and expressiveness. Some will say, give me Tom's range and character development. And somewhere in there, you've probably created the perfect Spider-Man. But if I'm taking one complete performance, especially now, post Brand New Day, for me, it's Tom Holland's. Largely because I've watched him become Spider-Man instead of being introduced to him as Spider-Man. That kid Tony Stark recruited is gone. The kid desperate to become an Avenger is gone. Even the Peter Parker who thought that he could perfectly keep Spider-Man, Ned, MJ, May, and all of that, all perfectly balanced, that's gone. What remains is somebody who has basically lost everything and still refuses to stop caring. And there's something beautifully Spider-Man about that. At the end of the day, Peter Parker isn't special because a radioactive spider bit him. He's special because life repeatedly gives him reasons to be bitter, and he chooses compassion instead. Tobey Maguire understood that. Andrew Garfield understood that. And after Brand New Day, Tom Holland has now gotten to explore basically every side of that. The kid, the hero, the Avenger, the orphan, the friend, the boyfriend, the man under the mask. And the Spider-Man who has to figure out who he is when the world doesn't even remember that Peter Parker existed. That, among many other reasons, is why Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man. And right now, I think he's probably the best one we've ever had. But I'm sure that statement will cause no arguments in the comments whatsoever. So let me know in the comments, Andrew, Tobey, or Tom. More importantly, why? But if you enjoyed this video, I want to say thank you for making it all the way to the end. Until next time, have a wonderful day.